This is the codependence of art and subjectivity. The article I chose is Art is a Different Kind of Cosmic Order by Brian Greene. He's a theoretical physicist at Columbia University. And throughout the article, he really expresses his love for math and how the patterns in math are undeniably true and govern the way art physically works. He contrasts this with patterns through art and how art reflects human society as a whole, and that art expresses human experiences, emotional responses, relationships, a lot of subjective factors, and whilst math is objective, art is subjective. Artist I chose is Lois Jones. She was part of the Harlem Renaissance and Expressionism art movements. She mainly focused on oil paintings and collages, but most importantly, she incorporated a lot of her African heritage and culture into her art. First piece is called Moon Mask. Right off the bat, you see a lot of colorful, just colors and a lot of shapes, and these are all aspects of traditional African textiles. There's also a lot of variety, which kind of shows the complexity of African culture. In the middle is the moon mask. It is actually a paper mache mask that was placed onto the painting. And the tears that you see in its eyes represents a sense of sadness for the figures to its left and right. And overall, this painting represents a sense of sadness that Lois Jones had for the younger generation of African Americans at the time, because she felt like they didn't properly express and appreciate their African heritage. This next piece is The Ascent of Ethiopia from 1932. The focal point of this piece is the sun and the figures surrounding it, of artists, musicians, and the words art and drama and music are implied. They're behind the buildings. And then we see this ancient Egyptian pharaoh in the bottom right-hand corner. And this kind of contrasts the top because it represents Black culture of the past, while the figures around the sun represent the modern-day Black culture for the time, which includes the Harlem Renaissance and the jazz movement. We also see these figures climbing up the hill, and this kind of creates a circulation throughout the piece, which represents the fluidity and the flexibility of culture and how there can be aspects that stay the same, and there are also aspects that can move, and overall culture is always thriving and growing. Last piece, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Le Fétiche. I'm not French, but it's from 1938. There are 5 separate masks that are from different African tribes. And there's a sense of movement and the overlapping of them, which so you can properly view each of the masks. There's also a sense of movement through the lines that are around the main mask, and that kind of represents the aspect of dance throughout African culture, because it looks like it's shaking and moving side to side. Also because the masks have more color and the background is black, they're almost elevated from the background, and that creates they almost are put on a pedestal, not like they show Jones's appreciation for her culture and the diversity of it all because of the variety throughout the masks. This last quote is part of Greene's article, and it just represents his idea on why art matters. Lois Jones' work reflects Greene's idea a lot because she depicts her experiences and cultures through her art, which can't just be explained by science, and that is Greene's main idea, that art shows aspects of human experience that can't be explained by science. That is it.
Do you know what specific part of Africa her culture comes from?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was South Africa, but I think she was from a lot of places. And throughout her life, she lived in Europe a lot, but she also visited a lot of different countries in Africa. And those were kind of her inspirations, her travels, experience, influenced a lot of her works. Yeah.
So what was the Harlem Renaissance?
The Harlem Renaissance. I'm not entirely positive, but I'm pretty sure it was art movements like with
So think Harlem, New York,
yeah.
earlier 20th century, 1920s, 1930s, this sort of rebirth of African American artists.
Yeah.
Think like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, right? And then Lois Jones is in there too. African American artists and writers who were creating, you know, big socially important pieces and making a name for themselves. So, and some of that had to do with resisting social injustice. Some of it had to do with giving voice to underrepresented communities. Some of it had to do with connecting, as you said, with Lois Jones, connecting to an African heritage, right? And sort of like bringing that into the American heritage and raising that appreciation, raising those narratives. So that's some of what the Harlem Renaissance writers and artists did. So you touched on some of those concepts in your discussion with Lois Jones. So I want to say you actually had a very concise presentation that came in about 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So even though there's still like 45 seconds to use if you wanted to, you still covered a lot of ground and went to depth very nicely. You were confident in your delivery and you moved really well. You had a nice proportional presentation. So I thought it was a really strong piece overall. And you also were able to answer that first question very confidently, which shows that you did research on this. So nice job.